Chapter 21: The Virtue of Patience, the Hidden Strength of Deliberate Action. Sun Tzu's wisdom is clear: he will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight. In a world that celebrates quick action, hustle, and immediate results, the Sigma understands that patience is a strategy, a virtue, and an indispensable weapon in his arsenal. It is the secret strength that allows him to observe, to wait, and to strike only when the conditions are most favorable. Patience is not inaction. It is deliberate action that is calibrated, controlled, and perfected over time. Patience is the ability to endure delay, setbacks, and distractions without becoming frustrated or losing focus. It is not simply the absence of haste, but the ability to act only when the time is right. Sun Tzu warns against engaging in battle until the moment is optimal. In life, just as in war, the Sigma knows that hastiness leads to defeat, while deliberation leads to victory. Modern culture prizes the immediate, quick returns, instant gratification, the need for speed. But the Sigma knows that true success is built on a foundation of patience. The world may rush to the finish line, but the Sigma knows the secret to mastery lies in the careful, methodical steps taken toward the endgame. Like a craftsman who sharpens his tools before each stroke, the Sigma hones his strategies, learning, and waiting for the perfect moment to act. Patience in strategy, the mastery of timing. Sun Tzu teaches, all warfare is based on deception. Hence, when we are able to attack, we must seem unable; when using our forces, we must appear inactive. The Sigma embodies this principle. While others rush, seeking immediate rewards, the Sigma uses patience as camouflage. He waits, letting others exhaust themselves. Patience is not about inactivity, it is about strategic stillness. It is about reading the battlefield and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The Sigma knows that while speed often leads to mistakes, patience leads to precision. The right action, at the right time, multiplies impact. Think of Warren Buffett, whose patience in investing is legendary. He waits for the right opportunities, and while others frantically chase trends, he maintains a patient, long-term perspective. This is not a passive approach, it is a calculated patience. It is the patience of the lion who knows the moment to pounce, and does not waste energy until that moment arrives. In the same way, the Sigma cultivates strategic patience. He works diligently, steadily, always honing his skills, expanding his knowledge, and waiting for the moment when his preparation will meet the opportunity with overwhelming force. The power of observation, patience as a tool for insight. Sun Tzu's profound strategy is based on the idea that you must understand your enemy and your environment. Know the enemy and know yourself, and in 100 battles you will never be in peril. The Sigma's patience allows him to observe without reacting. Through observation, he gathers intelligence, learns patterns, and uncovers truths that others overlook. Consider Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison not simply enduring time, but observing, learning, and strengthening his resolve. His patience under duress was not weakness, it was the foundation of his future triumph. He used his time to reflect, to study, and to prepare for the leadership role he would later assume. The Sigma's approach is the same. He does not rush into battle, he waits, watches, and learns, allowing him to make informed, precise moves when the time comes. Patience is the tool through which the Sigma develops clarity. He waits until he sees the patterns clearly, until the fog of confusion lifts, and then he moves with precision. This is why the Sigma's moves are so decisive. They are not impulsive, but the result of a careful analysis, drawn from a deep understanding of the terrain. The cost of impulse, how haste leads to mistakes. One of the most destructive forces in modern life is the impulse to act quickly, to seek immediate gratification, to make decisions without fully understanding the consequences. Sun Tzu warned against this. Speed is the essence of war, but speed without strategy is simply haste, and haste leads to error. The Sigma knows that rash decisions are often the result of impatience, the need to feel busy or productive. The need to appear active often leads to more motion, more action, and more mistakes. When the Sigma moves, his actions are measured and deliberate. He avoids the pitfalls of haste that so many fall into, jumping into partnerships without consideration, investing in ventures without thorough research, speaking without thinking. Consider the case of Blockbuster, which failed to adapt to the digital revolution. Its leadership rushed to expand its physical stores, instead of patiently positioning itself for the rise of digital streaming. Meanwhile, companies like Netflix capitalized on the emerging technology with calculated patience, waiting for the right moment to launch their streaming service. Today, Netflix stands as a leader, while Blockbuster's rush to stay in the past led to its demise. The Sigma avoids the impulse trap. He does not need to act immediately. Instead, he prepares, watches, and waits. When the time comes, his decision is backed by insight and strategy, not by a rush of emotion. Patience in relationships, the long-term game. Patience is also the bedrock of relationships. In an era of instant messaging and social media, the art of patience in relationships has become almost a lost virtue. Yet the Sigma knows that strong bonds are built over time, not through instant gratification or fleeting gestures. Sun Tzu's wisdom applies here too. To subdue the enemy without fighting is the acme of skill. In relationships, this principle means that the Sigma does not force interactions or rush intimacy. Instead, he invests in slow and steady growth. He cultivates relationships with care, knowing that time builds trust, respect, and mutual understanding. Look at the success of Steve Jobs and Apple. While many rushed to release new products, Jobs took his time, ensuring that each launch was meticulously planned and executed. This attention to detail, paired with his patience, allowed him to create some of the most innovative products in history. The Sigma understands this: quality over speed, depth over quantity. In personal relationships, the Sigma knows that patience creates lasting connections. It is not quick gratification but sustained engagement that leads to lasting success. He takes time to understand others, to nurture bonds, and to create solid foundations that will withstand the test of time. The role of restraint, patience as mastery over impulse. The real strength of patience lies in its ability to restrain impulse. Sun Tzu said, "He who is prudent and lies in wait for an enemy who is not, will be victorious." The Sigma applies this to all aspects of his life. He does not act out of emotional compulsion, he acts from a place of strategic calculation. Restraint is not just about holding back, it is about control. In a world where everything is urgent, where everyone demands instant responses, the Sigma's ability to pause, reflect, and respond with precision is his true power. He is master of his emotions, his decisions, and his actions. Consider Mahatma Gandhi, whose restrained approach to leadership turned the tide of India's fight for independence. Gandhi's strategy was not to escalate violence but to wait for the moment when resistance would break the enemy's resolve. His resilience and restraint became his greatest weapons, allowing him to unite millions in the pursuit of a common goal. For the Sigma, restraint is an art. It is the ability to withhold action, not out of fear, but out of confidence that the time to act will come. The Sigma's moves are deliberate and calculated. He understands that patience multiplies power, and impatience diminishes it. You and this lesson? Audit your own life. Where do you rush? Where do you act without reflection? Take stock of your decisions, your relationships, your daily actions. How often do you jump into situations because you feel the urge to do something, anything? And how often do you wait for the right opportunity to arise? Remember Sun Tzu's wisdom: in the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. The opportunity lies not in impulsive action but in waiting for the right moment. Patience is not passivity, it is strategic waiting, the ability to move with precision when the time is right. The Sigma understands this fundamental truth, that everything has its time. Patience is his strategy, and in patience, he will conquer all. Key takeaway: Patience is not waiting for things to happen, it is the strategy of waiting for the right moment, then acting decisively. The Sigma does not rush to prove his worth. He waits, he watches, he plans. And when the time comes, he strikes with precision and power. Chapter 22, Discipline of the Invisible War, Mastery Beyond the Scene. Sun Tzu declared, all warfare is based on deception. At first glance, deception seems like trickery, an act of dishonor. But the Sigma sees deeper. Sun Tzu was not glorifying lies, he was pointing to the invisible battlefield, the realm beyond what others notice. The true war is fought not in what is obvious, but in what is concealed. Victory belongs not to the loud, the brash, or the constantly seen, but to the disciplined strategist who knows how to command the unseen forces of preparation, restraint, and timing. The Sigma understands that much of life is an invisible war, struggles no one else sees, decisions made silently, preparation done in solitude. Others are obsessed with what can be displayed, social proof, external validation, public victories. But the Sigma plays a subtler game. He embraces the discipline of the invisible war, a mastery of self and environment that yields advantages no rival can anticipate. The unseen battle within. Sun Tzu wrote, if you know yourself and know the enemy, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. The first half of this wisdom is the invisible war of the self. Most people never fight this war. They avoid their shadows, ignore their weaknesses, refuse to confront their fears. They prefer distraction to self-examination. But the Sigma does not shy away. He steps into the private battlefield of the mind. He names his weaknesses, acknowledges his tendencies, and studies them as a general studies terrain. This is invisible because no one applauds it. No crowd cheers when you resist envy, no one praises you when you choose discipline over distraction, no one rewards you when you endure solitude. But these invisible victories accumulate into a citadel of strength. The Sigma wins the war within long before he enters the wars without. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That realization is not public. It is not shared on stages or posted online. It is the quiet discipline of the Sigma, who knows that mastery of the invisible war is the foundation of all external triumphs. The discipline of concealment. Sun Tzu said, let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt. This is the discipline of concealment, the art of keeping your strategies hidden until the moment they must emerge. In modern life, concealment is nearly impossible because people sabotage themselves by oversharing. They reveal their ambitions prematurely, declare their moves before making them, and advertise plans that could have been executed in silence. By the time they act, their strength has already been dispersed into gossip, envy, and opposition. The Sigma refrains. He keeps his plans opaque. He does not broadcast his goals, nor does he explain his every step. He operates silently, quietly aligning his moves, building strength, and only revealing when revelation is unavoidable. Consider Apple under Steve Jobs. The company cultivated secrecy, concealing projects until they were ready to shock the world. This discipline of concealment magnified impact. When the product was revealed, it fell like a thunderbolt. Contrast this with companies that announce too early, leaking momentum and creating expectations they cannot meet. The Sigma models the former. His power lies not only in what he does, but in what he withholds. Invisible preparation, the foundation of decisive action. Sun Tzu also wrote, victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. Preparation is the invisible war. The Sigma knows that outward victory depends on invisible preparation. The hours of training when no one is watching, the pages of reading when others scroll feeds, the meditation in silence when the world demands noise, these are the investments that create inevitable victories. Look to the greats. Michael Jordan wasn't just great because of talent, it was his invisible hours of relentless practice, honing fundamentals, and disciplining himself long before the spotlight. Miyamoto Musashi, the undefeated samurai, wrote in the Book of Five Rings, "You can win battles with the spirit alone." That spirit was sharpened in solitude, in invisible preparation. The Sigma adopts the same discipline. He does not wait for the battlefield to force improvement. He prepares so thoroughly that by the time he steps onto the field, victory has already been decided in his favor. The invisible war of endurance. Sun Tzu warned, there is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged warfare. He meant that wars of attrition deplete even the strongest. But endurance, properly applied, is an invisible war that few recognize. Life tests endurance constantly. Projects drag on longer than expected, relationships test patience, setbacks accumulate. Most people collapse under prolonged struggle. But the Sigma treats endurance as a campaign. He conserves his strength, paces his movements, and outlasts rivals not by being stronger at the start, but by being disciplined enough to remain standing at the end. Think of Thomas Edison, who endured thousands of failed experiments before perfecting the light bulb. Or Nelson Mandela, whose decades of imprisonment forged a moral authority unbreakable by time. Endurance is invisible because others see only the final victory. They do not see the countless invisible battles that preserved the will to continue. The Sigma fights and wins this war, day after day, in silence. The discipline of emotional invisibility. Perhaps the most difficult invisible war is emotional mastery. Sun Tzu emphasized, if your opponent is of choleric temper, seek to irritate him. Pretend to be weak, that he may grow arrogant. Those who cannot master their emotions become puppets in the hands of their enemies. The Sigma refuses this vulnerability. He fights the invisible war of emotions daily. He learns to withdraw from anger before it erupts, to silence envy before it corrodes, to steady fear before it paralyzes. These battles are fought alone, unseen, but they determine everything. Consider Abraham Lincoln, who endured relentless criticism, betrayal, and personal tragedy. His visible composure masked an invisible war within, yet he mastered it enough to hold the Union together. This is the Sigma's model: emotional invisibility, discipline in restraint, composure in chaos. You and this lesson? Audit your own invisible wars. Where do you fight in silence? Where do you allow your battles to leak into visibility, scattering your strength? Ask yourself. Do you prepare in private so thoroughly that your public moves are overwhelming? Do you restrain emotions so that no rival can exploit your reactions? Do you conceal your plans until they are ready to strike like thunder? The Sigma knows the truth. The greatest battles are not fought in public arenas but in the hidden landscapes of the mind, the schedule, the discipline, and the heart. Sun Tzu's wisdom lives here. To win the invisible war is to ensure that all visible wars fall into place. Key takeaway: victory is built in silence. The Sigma fights and wins wars that no one sees, so that when he steps into the public arena, the outcome is already determined. Chapter 23: The Grand Strategy of the Sigma, Total War of Focus. Sun Tzu said, all warfare is based on deception. Hence, when we are able to attack, we must seem unable; when using our forces, we must appear inactive. But the greatest deception, the ultimate tactic, is not a feint with armies or information, it is the power of focus. In a world of constant distraction, focus is not just a tool of strategy, it is the battlefield itself. The Sigma understands that life's grand strategy hinges not on overwhelming force, but on precise, undivided focus. In the modern age, focus is the most powerful and rare commodity. In an era of endless digital noise, social media feeds, and constant notifications, most people have lost their ability to focus. Their attention is scattered, their minds fragmented. They mistake activity for achievement, often chasing multiple goals at once, only to accomplish little. The Sigma, however, knows better. He has made focus his war, for it is in the battle of attention that victory is won. The foundation of focus, the silent weapon. Focus, in its purest form, is the ability to direct all your mental and physical energy toward a singular purpose, leaving no room for distraction. It is the weapon of the invisible, often uncelebrated, but deeply effective. Sun Tzu understood this deeply. Victory comes from finding the point of weakness in your opponent's strategy and attacking it relentlessly. The Sigma applies this truth to himself. He knows that his only true competition is distraction. And his strategy is to strike at the heart of the enemy, the distractions, and eliminate them, one by one. Consider the warrior's discipline in the past. Ancient generals, samurai, and military commanders all understood that undistracted focus was the key to victory. They didn't scatter their efforts across too many campaigns. Instead, they honed their strategies, sharpened their skills, and applied them at the decisive moment. Their strength came not from having more soldiers, but from the precision of their movements. The Sigma applies the same philosophy. His energy is reserved for decisive moments, and his focus is unbroken. Like a sharp blade, he cuts away anything that doesn't serve his ultimate goal. He doesn't need to be busy, he needs to be effective. The grand strategy of focus, mastering the battlefield of attention. Sun Tzu advised, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. This is the first principle the Sigma applies to his life. The battlefield is not external. It is internal. The real enemy is not other people, it is the endless distractions that drain his focus. The constant barrage of advertisements, notifications, urgent demands, and irrelevant input, this is the war the Sigma wages every day. He knows that to win this war, he must deprive distractions of their power. Distractions are the unseen force that saps his energy, ruins his concentration, and weakens his ability to create. The Sigma's strategy is to conserve his attention, much like a general conserves his resources. Focus is his weapon, and he deploys it only on his most important objectives. Sun Tzu's insight that if your opponent is of choleric temper, seek to irritate him, applies directly to focus. The modern world is a whirlwind of irritation and noise, and most people are drawn into it. The Sigma, however, avoids this trap. He is not dragged into endless debates or reactions. He maintains focus on his objectives, and when others are swept up in distraction, he remains calm and composed, waiting for the right moment to act. This discipline of focus is not easy. The world is designed to pull attention in multiple directions. The Sigma's victory is won by constantly refusing the temptation to deviate. He sees the world's distractions as false battles, useless skirmishes that only drain his energy. Instead of engaging in every battle, he remains poised, silent, and focused on his end goal. The strategy of precision, focused action versus haphazard motion. Sun Tzu wrote, "He who is prudent and lies in wait for an enemy who is not, will be victorious." This is the wisdom of waiting for the perfect moment. Precision is the art of waiting until the right opportunity presents itself and then striking with maximum force. In the modern world, precision is almost non-existent. Most people mistake activity for progress, rushing to act without thought. Their efforts are like throwing darts blindly at a target, all motion, no aim. The Sigma, however, practices focused action. He knows that it is better to act with precision, once, than to waste endless energy on distractions. The most potent weapon is focused action. When the Sigma acts, every move is deliberate, every step is calculated, and every decision is made with the full weight of his attention. Look at Jeff Bezos and Amazon. Amazon didn't start by diversifying. Instead, it focused on one thing, books, and did it so well that the company built its empire on a focused approach. Bezos didn't try to conquer every market at once, he attacked the book market with precision, then expanded from there. His focus on one core product allowed him to dominate it. The Sigma adopts this approach. He does not try to do everything. He focuses on mastering one craft, one project, one goal at a time. He reserves his energy for that singular objective, and only once that goal has been achieved does he move on to the next. The external focus, mastering the world by mastering the self. While Sun Tzu's principles of external warfare are valuable, The Sigma understands that true mastery starts within. He who knows others is wise, he who knows himself is enlightened. The Sigma's true power lies in the mastery of his internal battlefield. His focus begins not in external strategies but in self-awareness. The world cannot pull at his attention unless he lets it. The Sigma recognizes that only he has the authority to choose where his energy goes. He practices discipline over his attention by setting boundaries and creating routines. He crafts his environment to support his mental and emotional focus, reducing distractions, eliminating unnecessary input, and investing in only the activities that move him closer to his goal. Consider Nelson Mandela, whose focus on the larger purpose allowed him to endure 27 years of imprisonment without becoming bitter or reactive. He never let the circumstances distract him from the grand vision. This is the power of internal focus. It allowed Mandela to act decisively when the opportunity arose. The Sigma applies this internal focus to all of his endeavors. He asks himself daily, what is my true purpose? What is my one goal today? Each decision is made through the lens of this one focus. It is not about doing more, it is about doing the right thing at the right time. Mastering the invisible war, focus as the path to power. The greatest power comes from what no one sees. Focus allows the Sigma to operate in the invisible spaces of the world, the spaces where power is built long before action is taken. Sun Tzu's wisdom is clear: opportunities multiply as they are seized. But opportunities don't announce themselves. They are hidden within the noise, invisible to the untrained eye. Only the Sigma, with his focus, can see them. This is why the Sigma cultivates patience in his focus. He does not rush, he waits for the opportune moment. The Sigma understands that life's true battles are not about fighting on every front, but about choosing the right moments to act. His focus is what allows him to see these moments, seize them with precision, and win before the battle is fought. The discipline of focus, a lifestyle, not a skill. Focus is not something you do on occasion. It is a lifestyle, a constant practice, a decision you make every minute of every day. The Sigma treats focus with the same discipline a master craftsman applies to his craft. It is not something he occasionally taps into when necessary, it is always present, underlying everything he does. The Sigma practices daily focus drills, meditation, single tasking, eliminating distractions, structuring his environment to enhance focus. He does not allow himself to be busy with irrelevant tasks. Each task has a purpose, each goal is aligned with his long-term strategy. You and this lesson? Audit your focus. Where does your energy leak? Where are you distracted by irrelevant inputs? What is your one true goal, the one thing you want to accomplish today? The Sigma knows that focus is power. It is the ultimate weapon that determines success. By cultivating discipline over his attention, he ensures that his movements are deliberate, precise, and impactful. Apply this lesson, eliminate distractions, reduce complexity, and hone in on your core mission. Your life's grand strategy depends not on how much you do, but on how deeply you do it. Key takeaway: mastering focus is mastering life. The Sigma's power lies not in how much he does, but in how powerfully and precisely he acts when he does. Chapter 24, The Sigma's Art of Power. Strike where it counts. Power is not infinite. It is a finite current, flowing through each of us with strict limitations of time, energy, and attention. The common man lives as though this current is endless, scattering it on every demand, burning it on vanity, pouring it into leaks of distraction. The Sigma does not make that mistake. He treats power as a sacred economy, one in which every unit spent must yield disproportionate return. He does not measure power by size of force, but by quality of strike. Sun Tzu put it bluntly: he will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces. In other words, strength is not determined by bulk but by deployment. The essence of power is concentration. A single drop of water is nothing. 1,000 drops scattered are only dampness. But 1,000 drops pressed into the focused stream of a lance will cut through stone. This is the sigma's philosophy. While the alpha wastes power in dominance displays and the beta surrenders it to conformity, the sigma learns to strike where it counts, with timing, with precision, with force multiplied by leverage. Sun Tzu's lessons are relentless in this regard. In battle, there are not more than two methods of attack, the direct and the indirect, yet these two in combination give rise to an endless series of maneuvers. This is the sigma's toolkit: direct force, indirect pressure, combined in strategy that makes a small resource decisive. The sigma knows that even limited power, if applied at the fulcrum, can shift an entire campaign. Archimedes echoed this truth centuries after Sun Tzu: "Give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I will move the world." The sigma searches constantly for that lever. History is a study of this principle. Alexander the Great did not conquer the Persian Empire with larger armies, he conquered it by concentrating superior force at critical points. At Issus, vastly outnumbered, he ignored the full breadth of the Persian lines and drove a spearhead at Darius himself. The battle collapsed from the core outward. Napoleon at Austerlitz used similar design, feigning weakness, luring his enemies into overextension, then concentrating his reserves at the precise moment the enemy's line was thin. Washington, lacking numbers and resources, refused to waste power in open battles against the British. Instead, he struck surgically, Trenton, Princeton, preserving strength while bleeding the enemy's will. These were sigmas on the field of history, proving that power is not about fighting everywhere. It is about striking where it counts. The sigma brings this same doctrine to the modern battlefield. Life is filled with fronts: career, relationships, body, mind, finance, creative output. The weak fight everywhere and therefore win nowhere. The sigma studies the terrain, identifies decisive fronts, and channels energy with ruthless priority. He knows he cannot dominate all fields at once. He chooses battles where the return justifies the risk. In a decade, he may build one company, master one discipline, form one unbreakable alliance, and those moves outweigh 100 scattered hustles. Sun Tzu warned, if he sends reinforcements everywhere, he will be weak everywhere. This is the mistake of the distracted modern man. He disperses his attention across 10 projects, 3 relationships, endless streams of entertainment. His army of hours is divided, defeated piecemeal. The sigma declines this trap. He reinforces only where it matters, creating superiority at decisive points. In this way, even with modest resources, he generates momentum that looks like destiny. This economy of power requires discipline in refusal. To strike where it counts, you must withdraw where it does not. Warren Buffett embodies this lesson in finance, saying no to nearly everything, waiting until one investment presents such overwhelming asymmetry that concentration is inevitable. His wealth was not built by diversification across trivia, but by concentration on inevitabilities. The sigma lives likewise. He declines engagements that do not serve his grand strategy, no matter how tempting. He hoards power for the battlefield that will decide the war. There is danger in waste. Every man has felt it: the exhaustion that comes from giving energy to arguments that prove nothing, the drain of hours surrendered to shallow scrolling, the depletion from alliances that go nowhere. These are the equivalent of pouring reserves into swamps, where they drown without result. Sun Tzu warned against protracted war. There is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged warfare. Power diffused into unending minor battles is war without victory. The sigma conserves, cuts losses, and returns strength to the core. But concentration is not only about refusal, it is about timing. Sun Tzu declared, "Speed is the essence of war. Take advantage of the enemy's unpreparedness, travel by unexpected routes and strike him where he has taken no precautions." Concentration of power, if mistimed, becomes futility. The sigma does not hoard forever. He watches, prepares, and when the terrain tilts, he strikes without hesitation. His suddenness is thunder. The force he conserved is unleashed in one decisive blow. This is the art of power, patience followed by ferocity. Consider Steve Jobs. His career was marked not by constant, scattered output, but by concentrated explosions of innovation. The iPod, iPhone, Mac, each was the product of years of quiet concentration followed by a strike that altered entire industries. Jobs understood terrain. He withdrew when conditions were unripe, focused his team's energy, then moved suddenly at the moment of weakness in competitors. His strikes were not many, but they were decisive. The Sigma does not confuse motion with progress. He does not burn power to appear busy. He measures every deployment. Like a general with limited supplies, he asks, will this strike alter the campaign? If not, he holds. This restraint makes his eventual actions terrifying in effect. When others see him quiet, they mistake him for passive. But Sun Tzu taught, let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt. The Sigma's silence is not absence. It is gathering. Power must also be aligned with terrain. Sun Tzu emphasized, he will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces, who knows how to select the right ground. A strike on poor terrain wastes even great strength. A strike aligned with terrain multiplies even modest force. The Sigma studies his environment with this in mind. In business, this means entering markets where timing and leverage give disproportionate return. In relationships, it means investing in bonds that yield trust and strength rather than vanity. In personal growth, it means choosing disciplines that build compounding skills instead of shallow tricks. The Sigma aligns his strikes with ground that yields expansion, not stagnation. This is why the Sigma rejects vanity contests. Vanity is diffusion masquerading as power. It demands constant proof, endless display, scattered performance for the eyes of others. Vanity burns reserves on the theater of approval. True power is invisible until it lands. The Sigma lets others burn themselves on stage. He waits in the shadows, gathering, until his strike shatters illusions in one move. Yet power is not merely external. It begins within. The most decisive strike is mastery of self. Sun Tzu wrote, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Most men never strike at the heart of their own weakness. They scatter efforts across distractions, externalizing every battle. The Sigma directs power inward, dismantling fear, training discipline, sharpening will. His greatest victories are unseen because they are internal. These victories create a reservoir of force that, when projected outward, becomes unstoppable. To strike where it counts is also to strike at centers of gravity. Every system, every opponent, every challenge has a fulcrum, a point where force has maximal effect. The Sigma seeks these relentlessly. In negotiation, it may be trust. In warfare, it may be supply lines. In business, it may be distribution. In personal development, it may be a single keystone habit. The Sigma ignores peripheral battles, aiming always at the center. Sun Tzu's maxim rings true, attack him where he is unprepared, appear where you are not expected. The fulcrum is rarely where noise suggests it is. The Sigma finds the silence and strikes there. Modern life tempts diffusion constantly. Notifications, trends, endless opportunities, they whisper urgency. But Sun Tzu reminds us, the skillful fighter puts himself into a position which makes defeat impossible, and does not miss the moment for defeating the enemy. The Sigma builds his life to make diffusion impossible. He prunes obligations, limits exposure, designs his fortress so power flows only toward decisive aims. Then, when the moment comes, he does not miss. He has the reserves. He has the clarity. He has the strike. Examples abound. Consider Elon Musk, whose concentrated ventures, SpaceX, Tesla, are industries in themselves. He does not scatter into minor plays, he concentrates on a few campaigns that alter the world. Or J.K. Rowling, who poured years of invisible energy into writing a single book that built a global empire. Both embody the Sigma principle: strike where it counts. The Sigma also remembers Musashi's teaching: do nothing which is of no use. Waste is death. Every ounce of power is directed toward the campaign. Even leisure is not waste but recovery, preparing the next strike. His economy of power is ruthless but sustaining. He does not burn out because he does not burn everywhere. He burns only at the decisive front. Sun Tzu's wisdom weaves through this: he will win who has military capacity and is not interfered with by the sovereign. For the Sigma, the sovereign is the tyranny of others' expectations. He refuses interference. He claims his sovereignty, directing his army of hours toward his own grand design. His power is his because he does not let others spend it for him. And when the strike lands, the world feels it. Quiet men who seemed detached suddenly alter industries, relationships, cultures. Their power was not constant noise but concentrated thunder. The Sigma lives for this, not for applause, but for impact. Not for diffusion, but for strike. You and this lesson? Audit your economy of power. Where do you spend force that yields nothing? Cut it. Where do you scatter attention without return? Withdraw it. Where do you pour strength into vanity contests that prove nothing? End them. Then, identify the fulcrums of your life: one skill, one alliance, one project, one discipline. Concentrate. Build reserves until the strike is ready. And when the ground tilts, strike with everything. Do not scatter. Do not hesitate. Strike where it counts. Your life is not measured by how much noise you made, but by how many decisive blows you landed. Be patient. Gather. Wait. And when the moment comes, let your strike be thunder. Chapter 25: Turning the enemy's power into your strength. The Sigma does not waste energy fighting every battle with blunt force. He studies, he waits, and when he moves, he uses the momentum already in play. Power is expensive when it is self-generated. It drains reserves, it burns through time, it creates vulnerability. But power redirected, the enemy's power, the world's motion, the force of systems already in motion, that is nearly inexhaustible. Sun Tzu wrote, "To fight and conquer in all your battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting." The Sigma takes this principle beyond the battlefield. His greatest victories are achieved not by head-on collisions but by the redirection of what already moves. Most people misunderstand power. They think it is about force, about being stronger, louder, more aggressive. They imagine dominance means putting everything on the table and overwhelming the opponent. But the more force you expend, the more exposed you become. Exhaustion is not victory. It is debt disguised as dominance. The Sigma knows what Sun Tzu knew: the clever combatant looks to the effect of combined energy, and does not require too much from individuals. Energy is never created alone, it is channeled, redirected, magnified through leverage. The art of turning the enemy's strength against him begins with perception. You cannot redirect what you do not see. You must be able to watch motion without panic, to observe pressure without collapsing, to sense where force will go before it arrives. Sun Tzu: those skilled in war bring the enemy to the field of battle and are not brought there by him. The Sigma makes others deliver their strength on terms that he controls. He does not meet strength with strength, he receives it, bends it, and returns it amplified. Hannibal at Cannae, the archetype of redirection. Consider Hannibal at the Battle of Cannae, 216 BCE. The Roman legions outnumbered him nearly 2-1. A lesser commander would have sought escape or attempted brute force. Hannibal instead invited Rome to attack his center. He deliberately weakened it, creating the illusion of vulnerability. The Romans, eager to crush him, pressed him with full force. Hannibal's center bent backward, drawing them further and further into the trap. Meanwhile, his stronger wings folded inward, encircling Rome in a deadly vice. Rome's strength, its discipline, its aggression, its numbers, became the very thing that doomed it. This is the Sigma way. Do not resist the frontal assault when it is to your advantage. Let it come. Shape the field so that the enemy's confidence is their undoing. Sun Tzu, hold out baits to entice the enemy. Feign disorder, and crush him. To redirect, you must sometimes offer the illusion of weakness. You must let them believe they have the advantage. Then, when their weight commits, you move sideways, and their own motion carries them into the abyss. Washington's Fabian patience. Or look at George Washington, who understood that the British Army's strength, its size, its training, its resources, could not be met head-on by ragged colonial militias. Washington withdrew, avoided pitched battles, and let the British exhaust themselves chasing him across vast terrain. Every mile the redcoats marched was costlier to them than to him. He knew, as Sun Tzu knew, if he is taking his ease, give him no rest. If his forces are united, separate them. Washington weaponized the enemy's distance, his own weakness becoming endurance, the enemy's strength becoming overextension. The Sigma follows this pattern in modern life. When facing overwhelming institutions, entrenched systems, or rivals with deeper pockets, he does not clash directly. He makes them spend. He makes them carry the weight of their own strength until it turns against them. He studies bureaucracy, market inertia, political egos. These are his battlefields. Where others try to batter through, he glides around, letting their momentum dig their own graves. The Stoic parallel. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is the Stoic articulation of turning strength into advantage. What is resistance for others becomes propulsion for the Sigma. He sees insult and uses it to sharpen detachment. He sees rejection and uses it to refine independence. He sees pressure and uses it to forge durability. Where others are broken, he is redirected. Where others collapse, he adapts. Sun Tzu and Marcus converge. The obstacle is not an end, it is energy waiting for redirection. Judo of the mind. This is why the martial metaphor of judo fits the Sigma mindset. In judo, the opponent's force is not resisted but borrowed. A push becomes a pull, a strike becomes a void, a grab becomes a throw. The fighter with less bulk can defeat the stronger by using the stronger's own weight. The Sigma does this in the intellectual, social, and economic spheres. He listens to his opponent's words and finds the openings created by their overconfidence. He studies the flows of money and positions himself where their greed will overflow into his hands. He maps the digital world and steps into gaps left by others' haste. Sun Tzu, thus it is that in war the victorious strategist only seeks battle after the victory has been won. Victory is not in crushing the enemy directly but in setting conditions so that the enemy's own moves secure your triumph. Napoleon and the redirection of fire. Napoleon Bonaparte was a master of this principle. Again and again, he invited stronger enemies to concentrate their forces, only to pivot and strike at their weakest point with speed. At Austerlitz, he feigned weakness on his right flank, drawing the Allied armies to attack with massive force. When they were overcommitted, Napoleon unleashed his reserves through the weakened center, splitting the Allied army in two. Their power became his victory. But Napoleon's later downfall also illustrates the danger of forgetting the principle. In Russia, he fought not an army but terrain, weather, and distance, forces that could not be redirected. He wasted energy against what could not be bent, and in doing so, exhausted the very reserves that once made him great. The Sigma remembers, not all power can be redirected. Some must be avoided entirely. To try to bend what cannot be bent is to break oneself. Modern Sigma applications. In modern arenas, this art is everywhere. In business, the Sigma may face a corporation with seemingly infinite resources. Rather than compete directly, he studies the blind spots. Big players are slow, bureaucratic, risk-averse. Their very size makes them vulnerable. The Sigma positions himself in niches they overlook, uses speed where they use weight, and lets their campaigns educate the market for him. They spend millions creating awareness, and he harvests the audience at a fraction of the cost. Their power becomes his advantage. In personal life, too, the Sigma redirects energy. When confronted with hostility, he does not always respond with hostility. Instead, he lets the aggressor's energy expose them. The louder they become, the more their weakness shows. By remaining calm, he reflects their fury back upon them. Sun Tzu: if your opponent is of choleric temper, seek to irritate him. But the Sigma adds, sometimes the best irritation is no irritation at all, silence that makes their anger look absurd. Turning criticism into credibility. Criticism, too, can be redirected. The more fiercely an enemy denounces you, the more attention they give you. The Sigma understands the paradox: in seeking to destroy your name, they spread it further. By staying silent or responding with composure, you turn their energy into publicity. Many innovators, from Galileo to Tesla to Musk, have been attacked viciously, but their critics amplified their visibility. The enemy's attempt to weaken became strength. Psychological redirection. At the psychological level, the Sigma uses redirection to conserve emotion. Rather than fighting frustration, he transforms it into focus. Rather than resisting fear, he channels it into preparation. Rather than denying anger, he forges it into energy for training. Sun Tzu: in the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. Emotions are energy: if wasted, they destroy, but if redirected, they fuel mastery. Case study: Scipio and Hannibal. After Hannibal's brilliance at Cannae, it was Scipio Africanus who eventually defeated him at Zama. How? By learning Hannibal's own tactics and turning them back upon him. Hannibal used elephants as shock troops. Scipio anticipated this and arranged his lines with gaps, allowing the elephants to charge harmlessly through. What had been Hannibal's weapon became his liability. The Sigma sees this in all arenas: what others rely upon most heavily often becomes the lever by which they are undone. Sun Tzu's energy. Sun Tzu devotes entire chapters to the concept of energy, Shi. He writes, "The control of a large force is the same principle as the control of a few men, it is merely a question of dividing up their numbers." And, the clever combatant looks to the effect of combined energy. Energy is not just force, it is configuration, momentum, the situation itself. The Sigma does not obsess over brute strength. He studies energy, where it is moving, how it is flowing, and how he can redirect it at decisive points. Modern parallel: digital warfare. In the digital world, this art is sharper than ever. Viral trends, outrage mobs, mass movements, these are energies that destroy those who resist them directly. But the Sigma observes how they move and positions himself so that their current carries him forward. He does not fight the flood, he builds channels to direct it. He knows that fighting every storm is suicide, but shaping storms can move mountains. Personal strategy. In relationships, the Sigma avoids drama by refusing to meet fire with fire. If insulted, he does not retaliate in kind but responds obliquely, redirecting the force of words. If pressured, he does not yield or resist but reframes the situation until the pressure loses coherence. He wins not by crushing but by absorbing and converting. The ultimate teaching. Sun Tzu: thus the expert in battle moves the enemy, and is not moved by him. This is the essence of turning power. The Sigma does not let others dictate his tempo, his ground, his terms. He makes their strength a burden, their motion his weapon, their aggression his camouflage. You and this lesson? Examine where you fight directly. Where do you spend energy pushing against immovable walls, clashing with overwhelming forces? Now ask, how can you redirect? Can you let others burn themselves out while you conserve? Can you take their criticism and let it amplify your visibility? Can you let their aggression reveal their weakness? Write down 3 current conflicts in your life. For each, imagine how Hannibal would bend the opponent, how Washington would withdraw, how Sun Tzu would let the enemy's energy become the trap. Then begin practicing. Refuse to collide. Redirect instead. The Sigma's art is not in wasting power but in multiplying it. To turn the enemy's strength into your strength is not merely a tactic. It is a worldview. It is sovereignty expressed through patience, vision, and timing. When others exhaust themselves in struggle, you will stand apart, untouched, moving with the flow of forces they cannot see. And when the decisive moment comes, you will strike, not with your energy alone, but with theirs magnified, redirected, and returned like a thunderbolt. Chapter 26: The Grand Strategy of the Sigma. Strategy is the architecture of power. Tactics are the bricks, battles are the walls, but strategy is the entire fortress, the plan that gives coherence to all other actions. To the untrained eye, success appears to come from isolated victories, from clever maneuvers, from quick strokes of genius. But the wise know that true power is never accidental, it is the result of a vision so broad and cohesive that every action flows toward it. Sun Tzu understood this above all. He did not write a book on dueling, nor a manual of single combat. He wrote of war in its totality, preparation, deception, movement, supply, morale, and timing. He saw the field not as a collection of skirmishes but as a living whole. The Sigma must think the same way, not as a fighter in moments, but as a strategist across an entire lifetime. Sun Tzu wrote, "Victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win." This is the essence of grand strategy. The Sigma is not reactive, waiting for the world to define his battles. He does not enter wars unprepared, hoping to improvise his way to triumph. He designs victory before he engages. He arranges his terrain, his resources, his timing, so that when he moves, success is already inevitable. His life is not a random sequence of fights, it is a campaign, every choice building toward the next, every withdrawal preserving strength for a decisive blow. Consider Alexander the Great. He did not merely win battles by force of arms. His entire campaign against Persia was a masterpiece of grand strategy. He crossed the Hellespont not just to fight but to symbolically declare the conquest of Asia. He targeted Darius' supply lines and capital cities, not just his armies. He recruited local elites, spreading propaganda of liberation rather than oppression. The grand strategy was not conquest through numbers, it was conquest through vision, speed, and psychology. The Sigma studies this example and recognizes that his own life must be orchestrated in the same way. He does not chase scattered goals, he aligns all forces toward one direction, building momentum that compounds over decades. The world is filled with tacticians, people brilliant at solving immediate problems, dazzling in skirmishes, yet bankrupt in the long arc. They win arguments and lose marriages. They climb ladders and fall into traps. They accumulate wealth but squander health. Why? Because they never asked the question of strategy, to what end? The Sigma refuses this fate. He knows that to be merely tactical is to be consumed by the urgencies of others. To be strategic is to step outside the noise and design a life that moves toward sovereignty. His grand strategy is not reactive, it is architectural. Sun Tzu declared, "The skillful fighter puts himself into a position which makes defeat impossible, and does not miss the moment for defeating the enemy." The Sigma builds such positions. He does not merely think in days or months but in years and decades. He saves when others spend. He trains when others decay. He cultivates relationships that endure beyond convenience. He builds layers of resilience, skills, assets, disciplines, so that no single blow can shatter him. This is grand strategy, to live in such a way that defeat is impossible, not because one never suffers loss, but because no loss is fatal. Napoleon, the master of battle, ultimately failed in grand strategy. His campaigns dazzled Europe with brilliance, but he extended too far, fought too many wars, provoked too many enemies. Sun Tzu would have warned him, there is no instance of a nation benefiting from prolonged warfare. Tactical genius without strategic restraint is self-destruction. The Sigma must learn from this. It is not enough to be dazzling in the moment, one must be durable across time. Grand strategy is measured not in spectacular victories but in sustainable dominance. In modern life, the Sigma sees everything through this lens. A career is not a job but a campaign. A relationship is not a fling but a fortress. Finances are not consumption but supply lines. Reputation is not vanity but psychological terrain. The Sigma arranges all these elements so that they reinforce one another. He does not chase money at the cost of health, because a broken body collapses all campaigns. He does not chase popularity at the cost of sovereignty, because dependence on applause surrenders command. He aligns his moves so that each strengthens the others. Health sustains work. Work builds resources. Resources secure freedom. Freedom preserves sovereignty. Sovereignty enables grand design. This is the Sigma's art of war. Sun Tzu wrote, "He will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces." In strategy, this means knowing how to use both strength and weakness, both advance and retreat. The Sigma does not only rely on his advantages, he also learns to weaponize disadvantage. Consider Scipio Africanus, who studied Hannibal not to outmatch him directly but to turn his methods against him. Hannibal used elephants to terrify Romans, Scipio devised tactics to neutralize them. Hannibal sought to encircle, Scipio learned to outmaneuver. Scipio's grand strategy was not to be stronger than Hannibal but to be wiser than him. The Sigma follows this path. He studies the giants around him and asks, how can their very weight be turned into my weapon? In business, this might mean using a competitor's bureaucracy against them. The giant company cannot move quickly, the Sigma uses speed as his blade. In relationships, this might mean turning rejection into liberation, using the absence of approval as fuel for independence. In personal discipline, this might mean turning fatigue into focus, learning that limitation creates creativity. Grand strategy does not lament what is missing, it turns every condition into advantage. But grand strategy also requires patience. Sun Tzu warned, "He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight." Most people fail here. They cannot wait. They demand constant action, constant victory, constant validation. But the strategist knows that timing is everything. The Sigma waits as a hunter waits. He stalks opportunity without haste, conserving energy until the strike will be decisive. He is not absent during waiting, he is preparing. He is sharpening, aligning, rehearsing. The battle is won in patience before it is won in motion. Consider George Washington. He lost many battles during the Revolutionary War, but his grand strategy was simple: survive. He knew the British could win tactical victories, but as long as his army endured, the revolution lived. His retreat across New Jersey was not cowardice, it was calculation. He preserved the core. And when he struck at Trenton, it was a decisive blow that reignited the cause. Washington thought not in terms of single battles but of the war entire. The Sigma studies this and applies it. He does not panic when life delivers tactical defeats. He holds the line. He withdraws when necessary. His eyes are on the campaign, not the skirmish. Grand strategy is also psychological. Sun Tzu taught, all warfare is based on deception. The Sigma uses perception as terrain. He understands that others act not on reality but on what they believe reality to be. Thus, to shape belief is to shape outcomes. This does not mean dishonesty for its own sake, it means subtlety in appearance. He hides strength until needed. He masks intention until timing is ripe. He withdraws visibility so that he cannot be countered. Like Musasha advised, do not reveal your form to the enemy. Grand strategy thrives in opacity. The Sigma becomes a shadow, moving unseen until his presence is undeniable. In the modern world, this may mean building quietly before announcing, working in silence before unveiling, accumulating resources without display. While others flaunt their gains, the Sigma compounds in secret. Then, when he acts, his move seems sudden, overwhelming, inexplicable. But it is not sudden, it is the result of years of invisible preparation. Grand strategy disguises time as surprise. Yet grand strategy is not only external. It is internal alignment. To live strategically means to govern the self. Sun Tzu wrote, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles." The Sigma studies himself as much as he studies terrain. He identifies his weaknesses, disciplines them. He knows where temptation lurks, where fatigue sabotages, where ego corrupts. He arranges his life so that these weak points are fortified, not exposed. A man who governs himself poorly cannot govern a campaign well. Thus, self-mastery is the first strategy. The Stoics echoed this truth. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." The Sigma hears this and understands that freedom is strategy. To build a life without self-rule is to march into battle already broken. Therefore, grand strategy begins each day with inner sovereignty. The Sigma aligns his habits, routines, and disciplines so that he is not at war with himself while at war with the world. His army is unified within. Sun Tzu also emphasized terrain. He who knows the terrain and the weather will be victorious. In Sigma terms, terrain is environment. He arranges his environment to reinforce his aims. He does not fill his phone with distractions, his house with clutter, his company with parasites. He builds terrain that funnels him toward victory. This is not about willpower, it is about design. The general who places his army on high ground does not need to demand heroism. He has already tilted the battle. The Sigma does the same. He designs a life where success is the natural flow, not the uphill struggle. Consider Eisenhower before D-Day. He coordinated not only armies but weather, timing, supply, deception, alliances. He created Operation Bodyguard to mislead Hitler, placing phantom armies under Patton's command, convincing the Germans that the invasion would land at Calais. D-Day's success was not only the storming of beaches, it was the orchestration of everything before it. This is grand strategy, the invisible work that makes the visible moment inevitable. The Sigma studies this and realizes, his victories will not be won in the spotlight but in the long, unseen orchestration of all factors. Thus, grand strategy is not glamorous. It is not the loud boast, the flashy victory. It is slow, patient, relentless design. It requires detachment from ego, for ego demands immediate recognition. The Sigma silences ego. He asks not, "How can I win today?" but, "How can I win always?" He understands that the greatest campaigns are not measured in applause but in endurance. A kingdom still standing after storms is a testament greater than a victory parade. But grand strategy also includes legacy. Sun Tzu noted, "Regard your soldiers as your children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys." The Sigma extends this to his own life. Strategy is not only about personal gain but about building something that outlives him. This may be family, ideas, creations, institutions. He thinks beyond his own lifespan, designing moves that ripple forward. Tactical minds die with their last breath. Strategic minds live in the structures they leave behind. You and this lesson? Step back. Look at your life as a campaign, not a collection of disconnected battles. Ask yourself, what is my grand strategy? Not just what I want today, but what structure of life I am building across decades. Align health, wealth, relationships, reputation into one architecture. Withdraw from battles that drain without purpose. Preserve strength for decisive campaigns. Study yourself as much as you study others. Govern your terrain, design your environment, weaponize patience. Do not seek to dazzle in moments, seek to endure across years. Remember Sun Tzu's wisdom, victorious warriors win first and then go to war. Win your life in design before you march into conflict. Live as the Sigma lives, a strategist of the highest order, a sovereign of time and power, architect of a life that cannot be defeated. Chapter 27, The Sigma's Art of Patience, Victory Without Hurry. Patience is not idleness. It is not resignation, nor weakness, nor the passive waiting of a man too timid to act. Patience, for the Sigma, is a weapon sharper than the sword and stronger than the shield. It is the art of aligning one's force with time itself. Sun Tzu declared, "He who is prudent and lies in wait for an enemy who is not, will be victorious." These words are not advice to the coward, but to the strategist. They remind us that wars are not won by those who rush to the field at the first provocation, but by those who understand that time is terrain. To command patience is to command the rhythm of conflict, and to command rhythm is to dictate destiny. The modern world worships speed. Every message must be answered immediately, every opportunity seized before it vanishes, every ambition fulfilled yesterday. To delay is to be judged as weak, indecisive, or outdated. But Sun Tzu warns otherwise. If in the midst of difficulties we are always ready to seize an advantage, we may extricate ourselves from misfortune. The readiness here is not frantic reaction but cultivated poise, the kind of readiness that arises only from patience. The Sigma stands apart from the frantic herd because he understands that speed without direction is merely noise. He is not dazzled by the culture of immediacy. Instead, he operates on the long arc of strategy. Miyamoto Musashi, in his Book of Five Rings, devoted entire passages to timing. In all things, timing is the most important. He observed that one must neither be too early nor too late in striking, for both extremes leave one vulnerable. Patience, in this light, is not slowness but precision. It is the art of allowing events to mature until the strike is lethal. Musashi wrote that the true warrior learns to perceive the rhythm of the opponent and the battle. To rush blindly is to miss the rhythm, to lag is to forfeit momentum, but to wait with patience until the exact beat, this is mastery. The Sigma applies this lesson not only in combat but in every arena of life. History has given us countless demonstrations of patience as a decisive weapon. Consider George Washington at the harsh winter encampment of Valley Forge. His army was cold, starving, and demoralized. Many clamored for action, for a rash offensive against the British. Washington, however, understood that premature engagement would mean annihilation. He chose patience instead, drilling his men, hardening their discipline, conserving strength. Out of that patience emerged an army reborn. When the moment finally came to strike, they fought not as scattered farmers but as a professional force that changed the course of history. Washington's genius was not merely courage, it was the refusal to hurry into ruin. Or think of Gandhi, whose weapon against the British Empire was not a sword but patience itself. He stretched the battlefield across decades, refusing to be rushed into violence, absorbing blows without retaliating, and waiting as the empire's own contradictions eroded its legitimacy. His patience was not weakness but tectonic strength, the slow pressure of moral clarity grinding down an empire until freedom emerged. Sun Tzu reminds us, if he is taking his ease, give him no rest. If his forces are united, separate them. But the inverse is equally true, if the enemy is restless, you need not attack, you need only let him exhaust himself. Patience is often the deadliest counterattack. The Sigma learns to let others burn their energy in needless battles, while he conserves his force for the decisive blow. In the world of investment, Warren Buffett embodies this principle. His fortune was not built on frantic trading, but on patience, the discipline to wait years, even decades, for compounding to reveal its full power. The stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient, he quips, echoing Sun Tzu's logic that the undisciplined opponent destroys himself. The Sigma applies the same principle beyond finance, in careers, in relationships, in any domain where time filters the strong from the weak. Patience also protects the Sigma from traps. In Sun Tzu's chapters on terrain, he warns repeatedly against rushing into ambushes or pursuing bait. Do not pursue an enemy who simulates flight, do not attack soldiers whose temper is keen. The rash commander lunges, only to be ensnared. The patient commander waits, observes, and discerns the trap before moving. In modern terms, how many lives have been ruined by impatience, by chasing easy money, by leaping into shallow relationships, by reacting to provocation without pause? The Sigma refuses these snares because he has trained patience as a core muscle. He knows that most traps are sprung not by cunning, but by the victim's own hurry. Yet patience is not passive. The Sigma does not merely wait. He prepares while waiting. Sun Tzu wrote, "Victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win." Preparation is victory earned in advance, and patience is what allows preparation to ripen. The farmer waits for harvest, but he does not spend the season idle, he tends the field. So too does the Sigma cultivate his skills, fortify his body, expand his knowledge, and strengthen his position while he waits. Patience is not the absence of activity, but the channeling of activity into long-term foundations. Patience is also the art of denying urgency its throne. In today's world, urgency is worshipped. Every email marked urgent, every headline screaming catastrophe, every demand framed as immediate, these are the drums of a false war. Sun Tzu warned against responding to every beat of the enemy's drum. If he is in high spirits, harass him. If he is relaxed, make him toil. But what if urgency itself is the enemy's strategy? To keep you always reacting, always stretched thin, always fighting on their timing rather than your own? The Sigma defeats this by patience. He steps back from the noise, refuses the false tempo, and waits for the field to arrange itself in his favor. Consider Eisenhower's planning for D-Day. The Allied invasion of Normandy was delayed by weather, postponed again by doubt. There was enormous pressure to act, to launch, to strike without further delay. But Eisenhower understood the stakes. He waited for the narrow window when tide, weather, and moon aligned. That patience, agonizing as it was, delivered one of history's most decisive victories. Had he rushed, disaster would have been near certain. Great strategy demands the courage to wait. Patience, however, is not endless. The Sigma distinguishes between patience and procrastination. Sun Tzu cautions, there is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged warfare. Endless delay corrodes strength, drains morale, and erodes advantage. Patience is waiting with purpose, procrastination is waiting without direction. The Sigma avoids the latter by constantly preparing, by ensuring that his waiting is sharpening, not dulling. When the moment comes, he does not hesitate. For to hesitate at the right moment is as fatal as to hurry at the wrong one. The Stoics remind us that patience is rooted in perspective. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Time is a river, a violent current of events, glimpsed once and carried away. To align with that river requires patience. To thrash against it is futility." The Sigma flows with time rather than against it. He recognizes that some outcomes cannot be rushed, that growth cannot be forced, that wisdom is compounded only through seasons of experience. In this, he finds serenity. While others rage at delays, he uses them as training. While others despair at slowness, he sees endurance hardening him. There is also dignity in patience. To be hurried is to be commanded. To be patient is to command yourself. Sun Tzu emphasized the general's calmness in battle. A leader leads by example, not by force. The Sigma leads himself by patience, demonstrating to others that strength does not need to shout or scramble. In silence and stillness, he radiates control. Musasha observed, "In battle, if you make your opponent flinch, you have already won." Patience is how the Sigma refuses to flinch. He does not reveal eagerness, does not betray desperation. His stillness unsettles others, who grow uneasy with silence. In negotiation, in conflict, in competition, patience often forces the opponent to break themselves against his calm. What appears to be delay is in fact pressure applied invisibly. Modern life tests patience constantly. In digital arenas, where feeds refresh endlessly and dopamine loops hijack attention, the Sigma withdraws. He refuses to live at the pace of the scroll. He invests in long books rather than short posts, in crafts that take years rather than trends that vanish in weeks. His patience is his rebellion. While others live in milliseconds, he positions himself on decades. Patience also connects to faith, not in the religious sense alone, but in the conviction that your preparation will bear fruit, that your timing will come. Sun Tzu wrote, "He who knows when he can fight and when he cannot, will be victorious." Patience is the faith that there will be a moment worth waiting for, that restraint now multiplies force later. Without that faith, one rushes into premature battles. With it, one endures the long game. Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, emerges here as the embodiment of patience. He refused to yield to bitterness, refused to waste those decades in despair. He waited, strengthened, prepared his mind. When the gates opened, he was not broken but forged. His patience transformed personal suffering into a nation's rebirth. The Sigma takes this lesson seriously. Every delay, every setback, every long night is an anvil on which patience hammers strength. And yet, patience requires courage. It is not easy to endure mockery, to withstand pressure, to resist the temptation of haste. Fabius Maximus, the Roman general who delayed Hannibal, was ridiculed by his own people as cowardly. Yet his patience saved Rome. Courage is not only charging into battle, sometimes it is the fortitude to wait while others demand motion. The Sigma is willing to be misunderstood for the sake of victory. Ultimately, patience is about alignment with inevitability. Some forces are larger than us: time, death, truth. To rush against them is folly. To flow with them is wisdom. The Sigma does not deny reality, he aligns with it. He does not seek shortcuts through time, he invests across it. He does not rage at delays, he uses them. In doing so, he bends time into an ally. You and this lesson? Examine your own battles. Where are you rushing out of fear, vanity, or ego? Where are you fighting because you cannot bear to wait? Audit your patience. Begin with the smallest arena, conversations. Can you let silence stand without filling it? Move to larger arenas, decisions. Can you wait until clarity arrives rather than forcing resolution? Then to the largest, your life. Can you accept that some victories require years, even decades, of cultivation? Patience is not the art of doing nothing. It is the art of preparing everything until time itself becomes your ally. To master patience is to master inevitability. And to master inevitability is to walk undefeated. This is the end of part 4 of Sigma's Art of War.